Hi, Sid. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about, well, basically how to grow a startup, I think is a nice summary. So just we've knotted out a topic for today's call, how I grew Thinkific from 20,000 a month to 400,000 a month in revenue through content marketing and partnerships. So fair to say that you worked at Thinkific, right? For you to have done this?
I did, yeah. I was that was a VP of growth, and of course, it was a team effort. It wasn't just me, but yeah, this was we saw a lot of rapid growth especially during the early days when I was there. I think I was probably like employee number 6 or 7, and kind of like the first full time marketer at that point. And then over the months and over a period of like almost 2 years while I was there, we grew the marketing team grew, the company grew in terms of number of people, and the revenue, of course, grew as well. And today, Thinkific's doing even better now. But yeah,
Okay, so I mean, this is a simple question, but you, when you were hired, you obviously had a goal or purpose as well. So, what was like the entire motivation you had for going after this goal?
yeah, I think like the entire. I don't think we had. We did set some like numbers at some point, but when I was first like joining the company, it was mostly kind of like, look, we've got product market fit. We've got some people using it now. We just kind of want to like put some fuel on the fire and like get way more people, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the initial goal. The first couple of months, things took off really quickly, and then from there we're like, all right, let's see, like, can we reach? I guess it was like maybe 1 million at this point, and then it was like a 2 million, and that the goals kept going up from there.
And how much of this was a personal goal for you versus a company goal? Like, what were you personally driven by?
Personally, I was driven by the challenge. To this was kind of like probably the first time I was kind of like maybe building my own team and sort of running the strategy, and it was part of like the leadership team and in defining the company strategy in general as well. And so not just the marketing. And also it's a space where there are a couple of other competitors that were already ahead and at that point more well known than Thinkific. And so there was that challenge of like, hey, you're the underdog. Can you meet or match those people or beat them, kind of thing?
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, did you have a goal of 400,000 a month at the start of all this, or was it more fuzzy
It was fuzzy. It was like let's try to get as far as we can, or like, I would try to get as far as I could.
in a time
Uh,
frame?
uh, so like, I mean, there was always like the goal of like 1 million a month I think at that point it was very far away, but it was also like a very it's a big number. It's like, oh, 1 million a month, that's amazing, we should do that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like the long term time frame kind of thing. Um, or the other way to put it was, this doesn't really equate, but like to become $1 billion company was kind of like the thing, right? Like Shopify had done it, and Thinkific is kind of saw itself as the Shopify of digital products. And so why not also become $1 billion company? So I think that was like the big one. That was like the big, hairy, audacious goal. But then, there were like the smaller ones along the way of like 1 million, let's hit 1 million, let's hit like 2 million, that kind of thing.
Okay. And when you
Um,
came on board, it was 20,000 a month, so it's about a quarter of a million a year.
yeah, exactly. 1 million is 83.33. Um, Having done this multiple times, that number is burned into my brain.
Okay, so sort of first milestone was 83.33 a month
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
revenue. Okay, awesome. Well, safe to say that the result of 400K a month in what was the time frame, by the way, for that? Did you end up doing that in?
That was kind of like 2 years, I think. Just short of 2 years.
Okay, so that's really rapid growth. That's like 10xing, and then so like
20x.
200% kind of growth, basically, if I'm doing the
Yeah,
math right.
basically.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
I think we probably like did like 5 or 6 in the first, 5x, 6x in the first year, maybe a little more, and then like kind of like 3 to 4 in the second year, and that's
Yeah.
how it. Yeah.
Got there. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about how you did it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really would love to talk about, you personally as well. So you land in this job, you've got your big, hairy, audacious, become a billion-dollar company goal, the kind of dream of $1 million, well, a month, even before that, a year, as a kind of first stepping stone. So to get to 83.3 a month, how do you start? What do you do first?
So, like the first thing that I do, and I did think if I get any client that I work with, is really just trying to understand who is just understanding the space, how the product can like serve that market, who are the competitors, but also more simply, who are we trying to like reach, like who would be our best sort of like customer. So like one of the first things that I did was actually I started to do some interviews with customers of the company to try and just figure out what is the story, like why did they start using Thinkific, how do they find Thinkific, why pick Thinkific over the other competitors, what are their goals, and so using that allowed me to like get a better idea of like who am I going after, how do I go after them, what sort of like attracts them, right? Like it wasn't teenagers, so I knew Snapchat wasn't kind of like the way to go, right? But it also wasn't uh, kind of like very business professionals on LinkedIn. So, that's kind of like helped me like define exactly where we should focus our attention.
How do you do that though? Is it just looking at the current buyers of the product, or is there like a research tool you can use?
Yeah, it was primarily just like mostly interviews. So I would just do like say like a Zoom call or Google call with these folks, record what they're saying, and then ask them very specific questions around like, why did you decide to create an online course? How did you find Thinkific? What are some of the even like some of the keywords that you use, search terms you use, and then what are your goals as an online course creator? What are you trying to do? What's your background? So through all of that, like just conducting like a dozen or so interviews, I try to find like similarities between the answers, and then use that to then try to acquire more of those types of customers.
Okay, so it's basically just a conversation with current customers.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
basically.
so what did you learn from that, and what did you then do next?
Um, so what I learned was like many of the customers were kind of like folks who had they had like usually had like a full-time job that was unrelated to what they were doing, but it was what they were teaching online, but what they were teaching online was more like a hobby or a passion, so typically they may have had some sort of like blog where they were talking about the stuff, or like a YouTube channel, or they were sort of like in their community, like the person that people went to for questions around that topic, and then they decided to monetize that expertise by creating a course. So that's where we were like, okay, maybe folks who are folks who are bloggers, folks who are trying to build a social media profile, folks who are YouTubers, that kind of thing. So these people who are creating content on whether it's a blog content, podcast, video, social media content, were kind of like the folks that we wanted to go after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So that was then from there we were like, all right, so what are these folks? These folks are looking for content around how to grow their email list, or how to build their social media following, or how to monetize their blog, right? So those are like, we could come up with a number of different topics around that we could create content around. So we started to produce, and of course, that our good friend Tyler is who we hired to help us sort of produce this. But at first it was kind of like, I started to create some of this content and use that to attract folks. And I was like, oh yeah, we need to like scale this thing up. And then we hired someone for it, who's Tyler, and we sort of built systems around it. The other thing was many of these folks were already trying to like figure this out, and they were going to gurus online, like kind of your influencers who are your Lewis Howes, right? Who has a podcast talking about how do you make money online, right? So these people were listening to that podcast. So we were like, all right, let's reach out to the folks who have the influence, who are already teaching this stuff online, and let's get them to promote Thinkific as the tool to make money online. So that was the partnership side of things, right? So we started to do webinars with them. We would say, hey, look, we have the same audience. You're talking to bloggers. We're talking to bloggers. How about we do like a webinar that talks about how to monetize your blog audience, right? and we'll do a sales thing at the end where we sell like a year of Thinkific, and you'll get a cut of the sales.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like one thing that worked really well as well.
What webinar platform did you use for that?
So early on, we used GoTo Meeting, and then I think we tried a few different things. We switched it up. We tried Demio, and then Zoom as well. So like Demio, Zoom, I think Demio, it was too early at that point, but Zoom was kind of like more of a finished product. So we settled on Zoom.
Okay. And an affiliate program to run the partnership so you can, track the commissions?
So we actually kind of we built a sort of like affiliate system, which is really just like, basically what we would do is we would set up these unbounce landing pages, right? And for each webinar.
Unbounce?
Yeah.
Okay.
And each webinar had like if we did one with Lewis House, it would be thinkific.com/Lewis House, right? So that was like a unique page built on Unbounce, which would link up to Zoom for the webinar. And we had MailChimp as our email. So it would you enter it on Unbounce, the email would go to MailChimp, and then Zoom would be how we would conduct the actual webinar.
Okay.
But we kind of used those URLs. So we said, it's coming in via this Lewis House's page. So, the affiliate commission would go to Lewis House, that kind of thing.
So you wouldn't even need to you just know because the webinar would be running and then the sale would come through from the Lewis House related webinar. So there would be no need to track beyond that. You would always know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So where did that get you? How are we going from 20,000 a month to 100,000 a month with that, or how far? I'm assuming you could continually find new partners, right? So you could be doing one of these a week or one of these a day if you're really good.
Well, yeah, I guess initially it was kind of maybe one or two. It was probably 2 or 3 a month, and then we were every time we did this, we were wow, we're getting a ton of emails, we get a ton of signups and registrations, and the first 3-4 months that we were doing this, we were seeing 30-40% growth month over month in terms of revenue. And so we're all right, we should scale this. Let's just do more webinars, it's working, obviously. So again, we hired, do you know Colin? You know Colin? Yeah.
Yep.
So we hired someone specifically to do that, right? It was basically one person's entire job to find new influencers and convince them to come and do a webinar with us.
Okay.
Which meant they had to promote the webinar to their audience and all that kind of stuff. So we built out the system of setting up the webinar was after a point it became mechanical, right? It was just go here, create a new page in Unbounce using this template, then create a new webinar in Zoom, then link the two, and then link it to this group in MailChimp, right? And that's the new webinar setup, right? And so it came to a point where Colin would just be booking all these folks, and they would pop up on my calendar. And then I would just show up 5 minutes before, sit down in front of the computer. We had a separate room for webinars. We built a room inside the office for webinars. Mm-hmm. It was a dark recording studio almost. And we had just the same mic that you have over there. And then we had a
Ars Technica, by the way, Audio Technica R2100.
And then we had a computer screen, and then my laptop. And the Zoom would open up, and I would just take them to we had a presentation that we used.
Slides.
Slide deck. Yeah.
Okay. What was that? Keynote, PowerPoint. What do you guys use?
Yeah, that was probably Keynote. Yeah.
Who did the designs?
So initially it was kind of internally done. We used a random template, but then eventually we hired a designer who refreshed all of it and made it much better. So
was that in-house? You hired an employee to do it?
Someone to be an in-house designer for the marketing team. So she was producing. She was helping design the blog, and we would do these ebooks and other stuff. So she was doing that, and yeah.
Okay, so you sat down you were the host of the webinar.
Yeah. So you'll probably see a ton of videos of me on if you go to Thinkific's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because we would take these videos and then we'd repurpose them into content as well.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we would do kind of these webinars, and then we would A lot of the webinars were like some of the partner webinars. We would just like kind of like keep it hosted within Thinkific and sort of didn't really put it up on YouTube or turn it into content. But we would also do like kind of other types of videos, which were just like educational videos, like, hey, here's the top 3 ways to grow your email list, right? And so it would just be me standing in front of the camera and just like, saying stuff, which we would then take the video, we'd put up on YouTube, we would take the audio, we would turn it into a transcript, and then we would convert that into a blog post, which would go on the website, and the two would link to each other. And that was just like a way for us to rapidly create content as well.
Do you think that made much of a difference, or was it really just the audience coming from the influencers that did it?
Well, I guess like the content stuff, I would say would be separate. Like this YouTube content that we created and blog content with Tyler, that was bringing its own traffic, and then a lot of but that took time for it to grow, right? Eventually, like it became a big sort of engine of growth where it's just attracting traffic organically because we were ranking for so many different terms.
Yeah.
And the YouTube channel grew and all of that kind of stuff. But the partnerships was like a good short-term strategy where, because we were partnering up with some sort of influencer and they were like directly emailing their audience, we would just immediately get that traffic.
Okay, cool. So that was working, and like it sounds like you guys ramped it up. So you were doing from 2 to 3 a month to like what did you get at peak? How many do you think you?
I think there were days where I was doing back-to-back webinars.
Wow.
2, 3 back-to-back webinars. I would do one, switch it off, and then switch it back on again, and be back again for the next one. Yeah, those were fun, exciting times. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing webinars, and we wouldn't just do it with influencers; we would do it with other companies as well.
All right.
So, for example, one good partner was ConvertKit, which is an email marketing solution, and they are specifically, when they started out back then as well, branded themselves as the email solution for bloggers. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, bloggers was one sort of category that we were looking at as well. So very good synergy there between the two companies. We could promote like some sort of partnership where if you're a blogger, you would use Thinkific to host your content, and you would use ConvertKit to promote your content. So that kind of we would do these webinar swaps. So we would email our list and say, hey, ConvertKit's doing a webinar, you should show up. Here's a link, teaching you how to build an email list. And ConvertKit would email their audience saying, hey, Thinkific is doing a webinar teaching you how to monetize your email list. And so that's kind of like how we would do that. And it wasn't just them, it was multiple other companies that we did it with.
Okay. So like when you're doing all this, you're seeing your numbers increase. Does it eventually plateau and then you have to look for something else? Because I feel like you could almost do this forever in some sense, because you could always find a new partner, right? So
yeah,
to this day, do you think Thinkific has this strategy and they're still doing
constantly?
Oh yeah. So
they're still doing it. Yeah, they're still doing it. In like at one point, I think we did a virtual summit, right, as well. This was sort of like, we need like a big event that will, it does plateau after a while. I think like even though you continuously bring in more people, sometimes there are probably months or weeks where you're bringing in folks who are sort of micro influencers. So like the audiences they pull in not as huge as you'd like. So, there are not very many Lewis houses, right?
Right.
So once you tap those out, then, you've got to go like to other sources. So yeah, there are kind of like ups and downs and like plateaus and stuff, and you can definitely saturate it, but we tried different things. So obviously partnerships wasn't the only channel. We had like the content, and as we started producing more content, that was ramping up slowly. We did do like create ad campaigns. But yeah, the virtual summit, we did like this virtual summit called We Online. That was like the first one that I did back then. Which it stands for Women Entrepreneurs Online. And it was for women by women. Obviously I was part of it. We had some women on the team who were like involved in the project as well. And we got a whole bunch of women speakers, I think 30 of them. So over a period of like 5 days, like a week, basically we had 6 people speaking. And these were like women influencers who were teaching other women how to build businesses online. And that went really, like we made like, we got like 10,000 leads. and to attend and to sign up for the summit. And then like this was custom built. Like today, if I was doing a summit, I would use heysummit.com. But back then we used Unbounce again as a way to like create the summit landing page, and then email, and then the Zoom for the
Show up on
webinar.
Zoom. Yep.
And then we got like 10,000 people to sign up, and then we had like all these interviews happening throughout the week, presentations and so on. And we then promoted this kind of like bundle at the end, which was basically, hey, a year of Thinkific plus training from this person and that person and discounts and yada yada. And so that was kind of like a really good kind of like big campaign that we did. We got
Okay. So how far did all this take you? Like, were you halfway to your goal, or because I'm kind of understanding the motivation? Like, at what point do you say, okay, we need to do something different?
Yeah, I think like it was as we sort of launched a new channel. Like when I say launch, I mean like when I saw partnerships working, because initially I was doing it myself. Then we would hire someone and we build these systems where it was like just mechanical. You could just churn them out, right? Same with content. Content was working. We hired Tyler. We created like a bunch of systems where every Tuesday we'd come up with a bunch of topics. We'd shoot them on videos, and then we'd convert to blog posts. And then we also had like the separate sort of strategy of kind of long form content at the same time, which was like in-depth guides that were like 2,000-3,000 words that we do once a week. That Tyler would like really dig in, research a lot, that kind of stuff, and we promote heavily. And so then like, okay, the promotion, how does that work? So like, we had these templates in Asana, which we would assign. So if you publish a blog post, then you get assigned this full template, and the template would be like, push it out on Twitter, push it out on Facebook, push it out on Quora, push it out on here, message these people, email the people who are mentioned in the post, tag the people who are mentioned in the post. So like all these sort of little checklists, right? So once we had set up all these, the channels and systems, and they were going smoothly, you'd hit those plateaus where you're like, all right, we've done as much as we can in this channel. We could either like hire more people to expand the channel, or we could try a new channel, right? So that's kind of like it slowly. It was like over time we kept adding new channels. It was content first, and partnerships, and then ads, and then affiliates. So like we created like an entire affiliate army who we would manage, and they would then, and then after that, it was like, how do we tie these channels together so they're not separate silos, right? So every time we create content, we would send it out through the affiliates, we promote it through the ads, and so on, right? So, or every time we had like a webinar partnership, we would promote it on ads, we would have the affiliates drive traffic to it, and so on. And so it was basically, I think we had like numbers for like quarterly goals, monthly goals. And as long as we were hitting those goals, that was kind of like, okay, like if we hit a goal in a month, we were like, all right, let's just keep doing what we're doing, right? But if we didn't, then we're like, all right, where's it slowing down, right? So we'd have weekly meetings as well, where we track the traffic and leads coming in and the MRR.
How do you do that?
So that was just me and everyone on my team, and we'd have like each person would be a channel owner. So the partnership guy was owning the channel of partnerships, and Tyler was owning content, and other people own other things, ads, partner, affiliates, so on. And so we were tracking traffic coming in through all these channels, right? So we could.
Is it just Google Analytics, or?
Yeah, just Google Analytics. It was just Google Analytics and Google spreadsheets, basically.
Wow. So you would like have a Google Analytics and a spreadsheet that shows Lewis Howe's partnership brought this many subscribers and customers. Article written by Tyler brought in this much organic traffic, this many opt-ins, and then how many customers as well. Yeah, exactly. So each department head could then report, this is how many views, signups, and new customers I'm getting from what I'm doing. Okay. And you're the boss of all this, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we had goals, right? For like goals that started with quarterly goals, which were broken out into monthly, which were broken out into weekly. And so we could see how far against our goal we were. And so if like a channel was, and we would like assign numbers to each channel. We say, hey, this channel needs to grow by the 10%. kind of thing, right? And if it didn't, then all right, what was the problem? Like where's it going wrong? That kind of thing. So then that allowed us to like dig in, or like we would say, all right, maybe we'd have to redo the numbers because we just can't scale this certain channel as fast as that. So where else can we pick up the slack? Do we need to try something new, or can we pick it up in some of the existing channels? I think also we did use Amplitude for tracking numbers.
What's that?
So
Amplitude?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's an analytics tool, but it's interesting because it's sort of like allows you to build like these kind of funnels, so we use Segment, which is sort of like a tool that tracks events happening on your website or your app.
So it's called Segment.
Yeah.
Do you know the address for that one? Segment.com. Oh, okay. Well, cool. So segment.com and
amplitude.com.
Amplitude.com. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Segment is kind of like it's a middleman. All right. What it does is you say, here are the things I want to measure on my website. When someone clicks this button, or when someone signs up here, or when someone reads this, or whatever. And you have a name for all these events. Click the button, signed up, whatever.
Okay.
All those events, and also just like events in the app. So when someone logs into Thinkific, creates a new course, deletes a course, has a new sign up, makes money, whatever. All of these events are then they go into Segment, and Segment then like pushes it out to different places, right? So Segment then pushes out the events to Amplitude, and in Amplitude I can then say, all right, show me a funnel of people who did this first, then did this, then did that, right? So people who landed on the Lewis House webinar page, then signed up, then paid us money, right? So then I could see kind of like that funnel specifically. Or I could show me people who went to all webinar pages, right? And they would show me the full kind of the cumulative, not just about the Lewis House webinars, but all the webinars. So then I would know how much is coming from that channel, that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds overwhelming on some level. Definitely more than one person can handle. So what were you personally doing at this point? Because it's a well-developed machine. What was your job at that stage? Because you started as the one marketing guy, and then suddenly you've got all these people under you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess I became a manager, which is to say I didn't do anything at all. No, it was. I mean, aside from like kind of like just sort of managing the people management side of things, I was sort of involving myself in. I was kind of like making sure that we were doing the right things and keeping track of the numbers and setting the strategy and all of that kind of stuff. But then also I would jump in on execution every now and then. Right? Like I would say, I would kind of do things like, each person had their own channel, and they were like, you just go do this thing every single day, like day in and day out, you book new partnerships or you create new content. And I will sort of like give you guidance if you have questions, or I'll help you set the strategy. But also then I started to think of how do we combine channels so that we can create like a compound effect, right?
What's an example of that?
So an example of that would be, like say like the virtual summit, for example, right? The virtual summit was a combination of, different channels, because we needed influencers to be speakers. So that was the partnerships. Then we needed to create like content around it to like sort of generate some interest. So like PR articles and that kind of thing. And then we need to convert like all of that into the content post conference. Then we needed affiliates to help us promote it. So that was the affiliate partnerships. And then we used ads to like promote it in social media as well. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like one of those where it took a bit of everyone together. Even though they had the like sort of regular roles and regular webinars and content they were producing.
Yeah.
We sort of like combined forces as well to produce this thing.
It's more like an event.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I had like a sort of a campaign manager as well, who would like a project manager who was like managing the project pieces of the project and so on.
Okay. So did all of this take you to 400K, or was there more needed? Because you've done a lot already and everything you've kind of said.
Yeah, this eventually did. Yeah. And it still does for them, I think. It still keeps growing because like, you establish a channel, like content, and then partnerships, and then affiliates, and of course it was like, I mean, I didn't even go into like the social media stuff, right? Like we did YouTube videos and stuff, but we were also like very active on Facebook, and so we created this Facebook group um, for initially it was for customers, but it started attracting a lot of other folks who were just interested in the space. It became like a community of like, you know, tens of thousands, I don't know, probably like 100,000 now, of people who wanted to create online courses, and many of them hadn't, but now they knew about Thinkific because they're part of the Thinkific group.
Mm.
So like there was that social channel as well, and that had its own person too. Um, so like I think it was kind of like, yeah, all of it, like we basically doing all the marketing thing you can think of, right? Like everything in marketing you can think of is we were doing it, and we were doing it in concert as well. So that was a good thing.
Okay. So kind of in summary then, you started with just a basic idea. Let's test partnerships. Let's find a Lewis Howes, run a webinar with them, split any sales that they make from the webinar. So there's incentive for them to make money, and they also send you subscribers and grow your brand. Works, you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you go, let's hire someone to now be the webinar partnership person. So you kind of have a system built, it works, they take over. Sid then goes, let's build a new system. Okay, well, first, why don't we build a system that uses what we've already done? In this case, the webinars, we can turn that into YouTube videos, transcript turns into an article, and
Yeah.
then you can start with a person dedicated to that, the sort of content writer, and they could do more than just use the webinars. They can do research and write articles from scratch. You guys can create videos in-house. It doesn't have to be a webinar. So then you've got that running. I'm assuming then, like you said, you've got these kind of cross-pollination compounding opportunities where you can take what you did from the webinar to the YouTube channel to then goes to the Facebook page, and it's sort of multi-purpose. Then you go next level, let's do an event. Let's get, multiple speakers on at once. Let's get the affiliates promoting it. We'll get the social media promoting it. We'll do paid ads to promote it. We'll try and get as many people onto it as we can. Huge boost in sales as a result of that. Obviously, a lot of commissions going to affiliates as well as the presenters of the webinar. And of course, all of this is compounding too, because everyone's signing up under subscriptions, right? So you'd know your numbers for how long they stay a member. Because they're signing up for 1 year, so do they renew at year 2 and so on? And it's an engine basically. In summary, then, so looking back, Sid, is there anything you would sort of do differently now if you want to do it again for a current startup who is looking to grow that fast? Those kind of numbers, because there's a lot of moving parts there. And obviously, you didn't really mention anything there that didn't work for you guys. Sounds like everything worked. Sure, it started to plateau a bit, but sounds like they're still doing it today. So
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously mistakes you make along the way, and then you learn from it. And some campaigns were like a bust, but some campaigns did well. So, I mean, there was still like even things like we would also go out to like conferences and do like little group dinners and happy hours. Those were like smaller sort of campaign types. There's a lot. So I would follow the same framework and strategy for any other company, which I have been doing as a consultant, which is sort of like really understanding the customer, figuring out like where they are online, what are some of the things that they're looking for or are interested in, and then figuring out which channels serve those and which kind of like strategies fit that kind of a persona. And it could be content and webinars and ads, or it could be something else. So the framework, the underlying sort of thought process, the systematic way of identifying these channels is the same. And I've done that at different companies, and it's something that I still do and preach as well. Okay.
So kind of as a last question then, what is the most important thing to get right? Especially for someone who hasn't done this before,
I think the most important thing is just to not like this. You read up, you look at news or like the marketing speak online, and the people who are the gurus, the Gary Vaynerchuks, and they're always just like, oh my God, you have to like go to Snapchat, you have to do this, you have to do that. But that works for certain types of companies and probably not for yours, right? So you need to start by just figuring out who is the customer that you're going after, and not just do a, a channel or tactic that someone else is preaching. I fell for this trap too myself. Like I did Snapchat ads as well when I was at Thinkific. It didn't work because for good reason. Our customers were not there. But I done it because I thought Gary Vaynerchuk was saying you should do it. So,
Well, I mean,
uh,
like right now, you might say you got to be on TikTok, right? You should be doing it TikTok because that's where all the traffic is, right?
yeah, maybe or maybe not. It depends. Like it depends on what you're selling, right? Like one of my clients is a procurement software company. They work with people who do purchasing within companies. Like big company, 500 people. You need a laptop. How do you get that? That's the folks who do that within a company are not hanging out on TikTok. I got it.
So just for that example, what's the platform you used with them first?
With them, it's ads. Like ads,
like Facebook or Google or both? Or
Google primarily, a bit of Facebook and LinkedIn, but Google specifically because they're looking for things like procurement software or purchasing software kind of thing. Yeah.
okay, so it's
Yeah.
like just get in front of that very niche traffic who's looking for
Exactly. Yeah.
procurement
It is.
software.
It's niche traffic, and so doing very very broad sort of marketing campaigns probably not the best use of your time or money.
Okay.
Right. So again, yeah, it differs. It differs a lot. Like ads was a small piece of what of Thinkific's revenue, even to this day. But for Procurify, it's a big piece of the revenue kind of thing.
Okay. Awesome, Sid. Well, thanks for sharing the story. Very like sounds realistic. I can picture it in my head how that all came together, and it must have been a wild 2 years though, just seeing the numbers grow and everything you're doing growing as well.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of fun,
It was
right?
crazy, and then also just seeing the company grow and the team grow, right? Like the new people would come on, and I'd be like, Do you work here?" Like, who um, yeah, it was definitely a fun time. It was, and good learning experience for me.
Okay. And if people want to find out more about where you are today, how do they find you?
They can go to my website, sidbharath.com, SIDBHARATH.com.
Awesome. Keep up the good work, Sid.
All
Talk to you
right.
soon.
Thanks a lot, Yara.